Top of the day to you, mateys, and welcome to the Pirate's Galley. Normally, this is a snowmobiling channel with occasional ventures into ATVs. But today, we're going to be doing something entirely different. Your good, humble pirate, Graybeard himself, your pirate guide for Island Park in West Yellowstone, will be cooking up about 100 pounds of pork butt for a big party tomorrow. And I thought I'd invite you along and show you how the pirate himself does a little bit of smoking. Arr. So I'll take off the pirate hat and pull off the patch and my lovely wrap, put on the official Snow West hat, and I invite you to come along and enjoy a journey into making some smoked pork butt. I've got 90 to 100 pounds of pork butt that is fresh that I need to smoke overnight. I'm planning on a 20-hour smoke. And we got a full pig doing luau style. It'll probably start tonight and be cooking for the next 24 hours as well. And then we're throwing a little party tomorrow. My nephew he invited me to come along as an auxiliary cook. And he's expecting somewhere between 350 and 500 people to show up at his house tomorrow for a bit of a shindig, as it were. And I'm gonna contribute a little. Let me show you if I can move this just a little bit gently. There's the beginnings of what we're gonna be cooking today. That's the first 5. There's 10 pork butts there. And then back behind me, on the other side of the kitchen, is another 6 pork butts from a pig that my nephew raised and had butchered last year. So those are all fresh fruit. No, I take that back. There's 8 more over there. So I've got 2 smokers out in the garage. We're going to roll those out in a few minutes. We'll get those prepped and clean. And we are going to be doing some really serious pork smoking, and I invite you to come along for the journey. I hope you enjoy. So there are several ways that you can go about smoking meat. Some people like to do a dry smoke. Some people like to do a wet smoke, dry rubs, wet rubs. I am a big fan of dry rub smoking. So I won't put any glaze, any sauces, anything at all in my meats. Rather, I'll take one of these nice big double wrap pork butts here. Slice this bad boy open. These are just local Costco buys. And each one should have 2 big, lovely pork butts in them. Yep. There's one. There's the other. Pull these out and wrap that up and go throw it in the trash can real quick. And see what we actually have to work with. So these have been deboned already. Be nice to get bone in. I think that would probably be the bigger or the better choice if we could pull it off, but getting bone in sometimes can be a real challenge. What I like to use personally for my own spices is this little guy. This is Cosmos. It's a dry rub and it's called Dirty Bird. And I'll get this over here so you can see it. This is hot Dirty Bird. It's slightly spicy, not wildly spicy. You know, it's not going to be crazy hot by any stretch of the imagination. But I have found over the years that I like using this particular rub quite a bit. And with the pork, I really don't need to prepare it. I don't need to trim it. I don't need to do a lot of work to it. It's pretty much ready to rock and roll just the way it is right now. I am going to keep changing this lens angle on you guys just so you know. All we've got to do is cover this thing in dry rub. And I want to let it sit for a few hours, let the salts and the spices start to get into the pork. And then by tonight, I plan on starting this around 7 o'clock. Right now it is just a little before 2. I think you can see that big clock back there in the background. So I'm about 5 hours early. It'll take me, maybe an hour or so to prep all of this meat. And then we're going to go out and I'll pull the smokers out and we'll go through prepping the smokers, getting them clean, getting them fueled up, making sure they're ready, that we don't have a big grease fire. This is a lot of meat to cook on a smoker straight through, so there's a real chance that we'd end up with a grease fire. And I don't want to let that happen. So we will pop this bad boy open. I have my husky helpers are right here. Very interested in what they're smelling. There's a lot of fresh meat that's got the dog's attention. Now, some smokers are of the opinion that these dry rubs cut down on the amount of flavor that you get. The thought is that if you put enough of this on the meat, then the smoke has nowhere to go. Now that's a real thought, and there are some people that buy into that. I am not one of those people. I have not found this to be the case at all. So I'm pretty generous with the amount that I put down on this thing. I want to get it pretty thoroughly covered for any place that's exposed. Now, am I going to go inside? No, I'm not going to go in there because that's going to be closed up while it's during the cook. But I will try to cover as much of the meat as I possibly can. And I will, of course, do this on both sides because during the course of the smoke, I will pull the meat and move it around a little bit. And since you're eating both sides, you're going to want to have both sides well seasoned. I will do this to every single piece in due course, trying to make sure that I get plenty of spice on the edges, not just on the flats. And I will also probably put together a little bit of a spritzer, probably apple cider vinegar and maybe some beer of some sort. That'll act partially to cool the meat as well as to add flavor and to develop the bark. And for any of your smoked meats, getting that bark is always something that's important. You want it to be, a little bit crunchy on the outside, have a little bit of crispness. That adds a lot of flavor in my opinion. Now, as far as prep goes, that's about all it takes to do a pork butt. They come trimmed already. I really don't need to go through and cut any more additional fat or meat off of these things. They're fine, they're nice, they're lean, they're tight. You're gonna put some seasoning on this bad boy, throw it in a tray here next to me. I'm gonna use just simple little aluminum trays. This will just be to hold it temporarily. Once I get on the smoker, I'm not gonna use the trays. I wanna expose it to smoke on all 360 degrees on all 6 sides of the block of meat. But I will put it over here. Again, we'll try to go down. Or I can set these inside of here because I now need to let them set for a little while. I'll take that second piece over here and do the exact same thing. Cover that in seasoning thoroughly and generously. Every time you touch the meat inside the smoker, you're going to lose some of the seasoning. So it does pay to be overly generous, in my opinion. I've never found a situation where I look back and say, gosh, I wish I'd put in less spices on it. That is just generally not the case at all, at least not in my experience. And I'm not sure that I'd call myself a pit master at this point, but I've done a fair amount of smoking for a fair amount of people. And I enjoy it a lot. I do most of this just because it's just fun. It's a great way to spend some time. I had hoped to have my parents coming down from Montana tonight, and I had thought they were going to be able to hang out with me, but that may not happen in the end. Smoking is not a high-intensity hobby if you're using a pellet smoker. If you're using a stick smoker, then that changes dramatically. I will need to tend these pieces of meat probably every 3 hours or so. But I won't need to do much more than that. And there we go. Every 3 hours or so, I will go out and check on these to make sure that they're cooking, that the probes are working right, that I have enough pellets in the hopper, that everything is simply coming along as I would expect it to. I think that will probably work out just fine. I want to make sure I get these ends thoroughly seasoned as well. The salt in these seasonings is important. It needs at least an hour, bare minimum in my opinion, bare minimum of an hour to start to get into the meat and tenderize the meat. So you want to do your seasoning early enough on that you have time for the seasoning to actually take effect. Now, what's the old saying? Wash, rinse, and repeat. So that's exactly what I'm doing now. I've got 10 of these butts laid in front of me. I'm going to do the exact same thing to each one of them. I'm not going to bore you with going through the process, but I am wash, rinse, and repeating over and over and over again now. Now, earlier I said I wasn't going to trim these at all, and that's still not my plan. But this particular one that I've got here, this came out with a big piece of fat on top of it, and that's not going to do me any good at all in the smoker. So I went ahead and took a little fillet knife and just sliced off just a little, maybe a little more than a little in some places. I ended up with a handful of trimmings. I wanted to make it just a little bit leaner. All that fat's going to render, and it's all going to end up at the bottom of my smoker, which is going to cause me grease problems, and I do try to avoid that. Here's the first set. That's the first 10 pork butts. They're all nice and trimmed now and seasoned, and you can see the difference in the color is just dramatic as soon as those spices start to kick in and they start getting seasoned and it soaks in. But in addition to those from Costco, now I've got all these. I've got 8 more little pork shoulders or pork roasts, and these guys are frozen solid as a rock. My nephew, bless his heart, didn't think to take them out of his deep freeze, and now I've got to get these things unfrozen and ready to cook in the next 5 hours. Okay, so I'm going to grab these frozen pork roasts over here and bring them all back over onto this side where we can get a little work done on them. I'll get them all opened up and see if they really have started to thaw at all. I think, yeah, they're all starting to get just a little bit soft. So they're not frozen solid anymore. You got a little ways to go. I'm not terribly worried if they're not 100% thawed out. I want to get them certainly better than they are, but if they're still stone cold when they go on the smoker, it won't make any difference at all. Oh, nicely wrapped. So these were all cut and processed here locally in Rigby, Idaho. As I said, my nephew had raised this pig, or a couple of pigs maybe, and had them butchered and had them processed locally. These are gorgeous. Still pretty well frozen. We're just getting started on the thaw cycle, and we'll see if we can't encourage those along the way a little bit. Get that lined up and get all of them unpackaged. All right, so phase 1 is done, which is getting the meat out and getting it basically prepped, ready more or less to smoke. The local meat that is my nephew gave me is still a little bit on the frozen side. I'm going to give it, say, another 3 hours to thaw, and then I'll go ahead and season it and give it that 1 hour before I put it on the smoker. But now it's time to get the hardware out. So we'll go back in here and we'll open up the garage. Let you see into the Pirate's larder, as it were. Of course, there's the new ATV that we'll be using on the show shortly. And there's one of my smokers in the back. I'll drag that out. We'll grab this big old beast here. I was very fortunate in that this was a gift. My son asked me what I wanted for Christmas, and I told him I wanted a much bigger, much nicer smoker, and he allowed me to pick exactly the one that I wanted, and I chose this Yoder 640, which is a big beast of a smoker. And we're going to put this sucker to the test today. And then over there, back behind me, along with some other junk, there's a Weber kettle grill, and there's another smoker behind that red chair. That's my old Traeger. And now we're going to bring her out and put her to use as well in just a second. Wheel her over. I used this smoker for many years, but over time she's developed some weird electrical problems and has from time to time just shut off on me without any warning at all. So I no longer consider this to be one of my most dependable smokers. And that was my primary reason for getting the big Yoders, the little Traeger there. Just great smoker, but dang it, there'd be times at 2 or 3 a.m. in the middle of the night, it'd just turn off on me for no reason at all. And that, of course, in the wintertime is catastrophic, because within minutes it gets cold and you lose your ability to cook anything. In the summertime, it's easy enough just to come out and refire the smoker, start it right back up again, and I'm fine. So I'm not too worried about it right now, but boy, in January or something, if I had a brisket on there, it'd be destroyed. It'd completely ruin it. But we'll get this one cleaned up and walk you guys around to the big one. This will be my prime cooker today. Yeah, we'll tilt that down. That one we could put 12 pork butts on, is what I I measured it out. We're going to do 10 today. 10 will be a lot easier. Much lower risk than doing 12. With the smokers, less is more. It's one of those strange situations where the less meat you have, the better it's going to cook. You want as much circulation as you possibly can for heat and for the smoke particles to move around. So though I can cram 12 in there if I have to, doing 10 will give me a much better result. Everybody, I think, will probably like it, but I need to clean this sucker down now and scrape out all the grease and get all the ash out and make it ready for a continuous 20-hour cook, because I think it's going to take me probably 19 to 21 hours to do these 10 pork butts in there. It is a really nice smoker. It's a nice big, semi-commercial smoker. So far, the only thing I have cooked on this smoker have been briskets. And briskets are what I primarily cook with. That is my preferred activity. Sorry for that glare. Boy, that's harsh, isn't it? I'm shooting it just the wrong angle. There we go. That's a little better. But she's just a wonderful smoker. Got her all loaded up with pellets, and now it's time to tear her apart and clean her to the last ever-loving degree. And we'll do the same thing on the Traeger. The Traeger is also dirty from the last time that I used it. We'll pull that pan out and scrub this thing down and get her ready to cook as well. So if you're a barbecuer and you use charcoal or wood, all things considered, it's pretty easy. It's easy to clean, it's easy to take care of, because the wood or the charcoal tends to burn off everything that's left on your grill. But if you're using a smoker, then you build up a lot of grease, you build up a lot of leftovers, and you've got to go through and do some real cleaning pretty much every single time, because the enemy of a pellet smoker is grease. And if I let that grease build up over time, it will catch on fire. And if this pellet smoker catches on fire, bad things happen. And I mean like total, complete, catastrophic loss of your smoker. We did that last year. We used a smoker to try to cook a couple of hundred hamburgers for a big party, and that was a really bad idea. It built up so much grease that eventually it caught on fire, the inside burst into flames, and it fried all the electronics. And we ended up with a catastrophic loss on the smoker. So that is something I do not want to have. I'm going to scrub down these stainless steel grills. I'll pull the grills off, then I'll get underneath to the grease plate, scrub the grease plate completely clean, clean out the grease trap, put a brand new cartridge in the grease bucket, and then I'll take out the vacuum and I'll vacuum out all the ash, because we're burning pellets, so there's going to be a lot of ash. We need to get rid of all that, because once this thing starts, I can't touch it for the next 20 hours. Obviously, it will be very hot and very dirty. So it's got to all be done now. It's got to be prepped, and it's got to be ready to rock and roll. Okay, so we're going to grab these steel plates off, and there is no clean way to do this. This is just a dirty job, you know. These grills get nasty. They have to be cleaned. They've got to be maintained. And that is just part of the game, I suppose. There's no way that I found around this. So I set up a little table right behind me, and I'll put all the grills on that table. And we will scrub them off here as clean as I can get. That is how we open up access to the inside of the grill. I'm not sure if you can see that now. It's always a challenge with this little camera. There we go. You can see down into here. This is what I've got to clean. I've got to really thoroughly scrub that out and make sure that it's clean where the grease can flow down and end up in my little grease bucket. There. Yeah, this is you can see that's about half full already, and I'm going to empty that out, and we'll put a completely clean grease trap in there. And my expectation is I'm going to generate about 2 of these on this cook today. So as we come in here close, you can see that's basically the drip pan. And this is the leftovers from the last brisket that I did. Now I'm going to come in here with a big old spatula, and we'll just scrape this thing clean. And again, the goal is to get it to within an inch of its life, so that the grease from the pork butts can all come and drain right off the edge there and go down and end up in my bucket without any obstruction and not catching on fire. Okay, couple of minutes of scraping, like 2 whole minutes, and we're ready to reach in here now and open up the fire pit. And this lets you see what's actually down inside. And I need to get all of that ash. That is ash with grease. And that is just straight old dry ash. That's where the pellets actually come down in and make the fire. But I have a little miniature vacuum right over there for just this one purpose. That's its only purpose in life, is to vacuum out my smoker. You know, I guess I should make a little comment. Much like snowmobiles, there are those people who ride their sleds and just ride them until they die. They don't do a lot of maintenance. They don't do a lot of interval taking care of it, cleaning, any of that. They just ride it until it breaks. I suppose within the smoker community, it's pretty much the same way. There are those that are crazy and meticulous and go out of their way to do all the maintenance because they want to make sure this machine performs at peak efficiency. And I know a lot of guys that will never do what I'm doing right now. They just won't. They won't clean out the ash pit. They won't clean out the grease. They're just going to cook and cook and cook. And they swear that at the end of the year it works fine. They clean it one time and they're done. I will go the other direction with my little vacuum here, and I will suck this thing and get her just as clean as I possibly can. Reach down in there. So after about half an hour or so of diligent work, both the grills are clean now. The old Traeger is clean and the new Yoder is all clean and polished on the inside. Get down in there and see that she is ready to rock and roll and will not be a grease problem. The Traeger's got a brand new grease trap cover down the bottom of her. The next thing I got to do now is mix pellets. Yeah, a lot of guys will go and buy their pellets and just use one particular pellet. I have found that that is not always the best solution for me. I tend to buy specialty pellets, and the ones that I like right now is this knotty wood. It's a combination of almond wood and plum wood. And I found if I take that almond and plum wood and I mix it 50-50 and then feed it into the smokers, I get just a fabulous flavor. For this particular smoke, I'm going to use a combination of cherry wood and hickory. But again, I'm going to mix those 50-50. I'll drain the pellets that are in there out, and I'll put that cherry hickory in, which I think will work really well with pork butt, and get both of these guys primed and loaded, and we'll be one step closer to smoking. All right, scooped out the old pellets, and we're ready to put in a fresh load now. All right, so got a couple of bags of pellets, and drag those over here and we'll do a little mixing. I'm going to put about 50% of my one flavor. I think I said cherry and hickory. I meant to say apple. So I'll put half apple. And half hickory. And mix. So I've got 40 pounds of flavored wood, and I expect I'll use all 40 pounds of this in the 20-hour smoke. And then I got another 40 pounds on behind it that I'll use just for heat. The first 3 to 6 hours for the most part is probably where it's going to get all the flavor, all the delicious aromas and flavorings are going to come from that initial smoking. By the time I'm at hour 10, we're just cooking meat. The outside's got all the flavor and all the smoke particles it's probably ever going to get. But you know, hour 10, hour 15, hour 20, I still got to keep that heat going. And at that point, I'll use whatever pellets I got laying around the house. I'm no longer worried that I'm trying to get the best possible flavor. And with that, that's pretty much it. The two smokers are clean, they're prepped, They're fueled, they're ready to rock and roll. We need to wait a couple hours for those other little pork shoulders to finish thawing before I can season them. And I think I'm gonna go get myself some lunch. The little Traeger is all loaded up with her fuel, and the big old Yoder is loaded up. And we're ready to close these bad boys down. Something's not happening. Oh, there we go. And we'll shut this. Close this one. And close up the hopper. And that's all she wrote, boys and girls. We're ready to cook us some smoked pork butt tonight. 6:30 now, and that means it is time to kick the tires and light the fire and get both of these little smokers up and running here. I finished seasoning the rest of that pork that my nephew brought over, and it's time to get this show on the road, boys and girls. We'll start off with the Traeger. And looks like I gotta do the master power switch. Yep. Power up. And see if she turns on now. There we go. Okay, smoker number 1 coming online. Set her for 225. That's what we're going to cook at today. And start her off. And we'll go over to another one. And the Yoder. Fire her up. She turns right on. Get her started. Set her also to 225. And away we go. Now we just sit back and we wait until we see smoke. It won't be too long. Oh, 2 machines that do the same thing, but boy, do they do it differently. Holy cow. There we go. This is what the problem is with this thing. This one just shuts off sometimes for no reason at all. It may not be dependable at all tonight. Shoot, I've never seen it shut off this fast. Let's try again. I have no idea, but not a good omen. As long as the Yoder works, I'm okay. I wanted the Traeger to work too, but maybe not. Nice if I had both of these working, but the reality is that Traeger has caused me nothing but grief for some time. I've had the entire electronics on that smoker replaced already and had numerous tech support calls. Love the machine. When it works great, but there is something still fundamentally wrong inside the electronics on that smoker. And if it wasn't summer and I wasn't going to be out here where I could actually monitor this thing closely, I figure I'll hang out outside till midnight tonight. If I wasn't able to do that, there's no way I would trust the smoker at all. Worst case, in this case with these little bitty pork shoulders I'm going to do, I can just throw those in the oven and cook them if I have to. There might even be a little bit of room inside the Yoder to do a few of them, but we'll just have to wait and see. Oh, here we go. Okay, we are 1 to 2 minutes in since I hit the start button. And there is smoke coming out. Oh my gosh. That is the best smelling smoke. Oh. Make sure you can see the there you go. You see some contrast against the truck. It's just pumping smoke out everywhere. Yeah, we have a good launch. So both of the smokers are up and running now. They both started a little bit differently, and the Traeger got off to a bad start. She seems to be happy now. Maybe I'll get lucky and it'll work all night. In either case, I was just looking at Facebook. On the Facebook page, I got an interesting comment or two. I got more than a comment or two. I got several comments on people wanting to know what time the party was. They wanted to know why they didn't get an invite. And it led me to toss out there, is this something you guys would like to do? Should we take a day this winter and get together and, smoke a bunch of meat and hang out up at Big Springs or something? That Big Springs warming hut's available to us. We can use it anytime we want. I could probably figure out a way to transport one or two of these smokers up there. I'm not sure if I'm comfortable firing them up and leaving them unattended all day long while we're in the mountains, but I might not be opposed to taking a day off and, you know, cooking and hanging out. Maybe I get the support of one of our local snowmobile clubs, and maybe a couple of you guys be willing to give up a little bit of your time, or maybe we got a couple of locals that live in IP that be willing to come over and give me a hand. But that might be something fun to do. You want to have a pirate party? You know, all those of us that like to go riding in Island Park in West Yellowstone want to get together and, you know, we'll smoke some pork butt or do a brisket or something. I don't know. I'm totally down with that. I do a fair amount during the wintertime. It's not, as I said, it's not impossible. It's just hard. In the wintertime, these smokers turn white. I have big thermal insulation blankets that are built for them that we wrap them up in. It gives you a fighting chance. Once it gets below zero, it's just hard. You burn a ton of pellets. You know, if it's 10 or 15 below zero, it's just not even worth trying. But if we can keep it in that low teens range, it's very doable. The other problem is if it's wind. If there's wind and it's cold, we'll never get the temperatures we need. The machines just can't generate that much heat. And when they do, the food that's over the hot box, right where the pellets are burning, just gets destroyed. Smokers are designed for gentle weather, you know, and lots of time. So cooking in the middle of winter in the snow, if there's a breeze, is hard. And if it's very cold, it's darn near impossible. But I'm not opposed to trying, you know, if that's something that you think we ought to do as a community, we need to get together for a day and have a little bit of a party up there, then guys, let me know in the comments when you watch this video. I'm certainly not opposed to giving that a try. It's 12 hours later, so about 7:30 last night we put all the pork shoulders and pork butts onto the smokers, and it's now 7:45 a.m. Saturday morning. It's time to open up the smokers and take our first real look. I did stay up with these last night till about midnight, and I rotated the pork butts once, the big ones. The little ones I'm not worried about. They're probably all completely cooked, to be perfectly honest. But the big ones, we're probably going to see a 20 or a 30 degree difference in temperature from one pork butt to the other. My plan now is I'm going to open up the little smoker, confirm everything's right around 200 degrees. I'll probably pull all those little pork shoulders off, and then I'm going to separate the coldest from the hottest big pork butts and put the coldest ones on the little smoker and spread out the big ones, and we'll continue on with the cook. First thing I did this morning when I woke up, of course, was to check the oil pot. That's my drippings, and it was not 100% full, but it was pretty darn close to being maxed out. So we put a new one in there. Several people had warned me going to fill that up to overflowing, and sure enough, they were right. It's I was pretty close to the top of the roll there. A thermopen, and this is what I'm going to use to actually check and see what the temps are. So it shows 73 degrees ambient. We'll take that over here to the first smoker. We'll pop this baby open, and just looking at those, you can tell they're done. Stick the thermopen in, and 195 on that first one right there. The second one, 191. In the back, 197. Yeah, these are all finished, which is what I expected. So I'll go ahead and pull all these off, and we'll transfer those into the oven for keeping them warm for the rest of the day. So this is what we got out of the small smoker. These are all the little pork shoulders or pork roasts that were from the pig my nephew raised last season and had professionally butchered. Those look done. They're ready to go in. We'll just wrap them and keep them warm until this afternoon. All right, so now we'll open up the big one, and we'll see where we're really at as far as the cook goes. Okay, those look gorgeous. Oh my gosh, look at the beautiful color and the texture on the outside of these pork butts. That's just what I wanted to see. But I'm gonna guess the temperature, oh man, that's a mess underneath. You see what's down underneath there, all that oil and grease. Yep, and that's it. Definite danger zone. A little bit of a fire hazard there. Okay, let's grab the thermopen and take a look and see what we've got. Okay, 172 bottom left, 184 middle, 177 on the there. Okay, top left is 150. What a difference. Top center, 177. Top right, 178. So 178, 172, 182, 170. Yeah, they're just got a good spread there. So I think these two here are the coldest. Now that's crazy. 108, 190 in the back, 154 in the front. Goodness. All right, so I'm going to pull some of these off and start spreading them around. Because of the crazy heat differences between one spot on the smoker and another, this one particular pork shoulder, pork butt right here, is 100% cooked. It's done 7 hours earlier than I had expected. So I got to pull this one off and wrap it and put her inside the oven. So I took the ones that were cooked and wrapped them and tossed them into the warming oven, and they're going to sit here until we're ready to shred them and serve them tonight. 10 o'clock now, so it's time to open up both the smokers and take the probe out and do the next check. So I put the one brisket that had the lowest core temperature in the little smoker all by itself. Let's see what we got now. 168 degrees. So this one's coming along just fine. Close her back up. How about the big ones? I'm going to guess we got a couple more of these that are probably finished now. Put the first one in. And we've got 190 on that one, so a little bit to go. Number 2, 184, a little bit to go. Number 3, 162. Got a lot of ways to go on that one. That one's at 186, so she's close. Within 10 degrees, she'll be coming off. And this one, 100 and I can't really read that. 189 degrees. That one is just about ready to come off the 187, 188. Yep. And the last one, 186. So they're all getting there fast. Turn this up just a little bit. I had set this down a little bit earlier. Let's see if we can get that so you guys can actually see it. So set point is 210. I'm going to turn that up now to 225. That long slow part now where I want to say one brisket. Man, I've cooked so many briskets and I've done so few of these pork butts, where one pork butt at a time is coming up to temperature. And I've got 4 or 5 that are already inside the oven, all wrapped up and moistened, and slathered in oil and water. And these guys will each come off one at a time over the next hour or two, I suspect. I think this whole batch is going to be done quite a bit sooner than what I was led to believe. I've been told to expect 20 hours to do 10 pork butts, but I don't think it's going to take. I think I'll be done probably in 2 hours or so is my guess. Maybe that one little one will go a little bit longer, but by and by, they're coming along fast. Well, what a journey this has been. It is now 1:35 in the afternoon on Saturday. So we've been cooking for quite some time now. I'm down to 3 pork butts. We started off with 10 of the big pork butts and probably 8 of the small pork roasts. And of those 10 original ones, 7 I've pulled off one at a time as the days gone by. I've got 3 left. One of them is in my little auxiliary smoker there. And I just pulled it off a second ago. I opened it up and checked it. The temperature's at 195, and that for me is close enough because I know I still got a couple hours to let them sit inside the warming tray in the oven. So I'm going to pull off that last one here and put that smoker into shutdown mode. And for some reason, this thing is not tracking me. Well, that happens from time to time. Oh my gosh. You see that? That is just freaking gorgeous. Oh my gosh. So what I haven't been putting on the video for the last couple of hours is that every time I've taken one of these pork butts off, most of the pork butts unroll a little bit or a little piece sticks out, and that ends up getting burnt to a crisp. So you end up with pork jerky. Well, I've been eating that pork jerky for the last couple of hours. I'm here to tell you, man, it is fabulous. It is so incredibly good. When you do a brisket, you always end up with burnt ends, you know, unless you just trim it really, really tight. I don't. I like to cook my whole brisket. I love the burnt ends on the brisket, and on the pork butt, it's basically exactly the same. If you have any of those little pieces that unravel when they roll the pork butt to make the final cut of meat, those pieces get cooked significantly more than the core does. But the flavor is so intense, and the meat, you know, it's drier and it's more cooked. It's more like a piece of jerky, so you're going to chew on it. But I'm here to tell you, man, in my opinion, that's just the best. So every time I've taken a pork butt off, about every 45 minutes, one's come off. I've been cutting off, you know, a hunk of pork jerky and just sitting inside, just chewing on it, having the best old time. Just so you can appreciate just how beautiful that pork butt turned out. Look at that. That bark is just gorgeous. We'll take this thing and rip it apart and turn it into shredded pork here in the afternoon for everybody to eat tonight. But my gosh, I couldn't be happier with how beautiful that is. That is so good looking. Yeah, that is some yummy, yummy meat right there. And I should also mention on the smoker, so this is my old smoker. I've had this for, I don't know, probably 5 years. And when we started it yesterday, it immediately shut down 5 or 10 minutes into the smoke. But relit it, restarted it, and she ran great today. I have to admit, you know, the nice thing about this smoker is that it is so easy to use and so easy to clean up. Maintenance on the Traegers is very, very minimal, especially as compared to the Yoder. The Yoder is a much bigger, more robust machine, but sure does take a lot more time and effort. And I'll flip this open and show you. This is what's left of the original 10 butts that we put in there. There's only 2 left, and they're both about 10 degrees shy of where I wanted. So they still got a little bit to go, but all in all, man, it's been a really good smoke cycle so far. And it's time to start pulling all the brisket, I swear. It's time to start pulling all the pork butts out of the oven and getting them all shredded and ready for dinner tonight. All of my pork roast and my pork butts are all done now. It's 6:18. It is time for me to take all 18 of them out and shred them. I am joined by my lovely wife. This is Sue in the background. Susie's going to give me a hand. Take the first one out of the oven. We've had it in the heater or the warmer, and we're going to go ahead and put this up on the cutting board, and we'll get that thing shredded, and away we'll go. Take this bad boy. We're going to shred these up. Look at that smoke ring inside of there. That looks lovely. So we started off with around 90 pounds of pork last night. I'm not sure what our final weight is, but it will be substantially less, no doubt. So much goodness right there. Oh my gosh. All we gotta do is get it shredded, get it over to my nephew's house, and me and 350 of our dearest, closest, best friends that we've never met before, we're gonna enjoy this for dinner tonight. Well, the meat's all done, it's all shredded. Made it over to my nephew's house. There's a couple of hundred people here so far. That's his big signature Santa that he puts up so everybody can see where the farm is. But they got a fresh roast pig down there. Right in the back, you can't see it, I'll zoom in a second. But mission accomplished. So we got about 90 pounds of meat total done, and we've dished it up and people are having dinner. And it was fun, and I appreciate you guys coming along for the ride for the Pirates' first galley experience. Yeah, cooking with the pirate. We'll see you guys on the mountain. Bye-bye. And that's where they roasted the luau pig that I did the extra 90 pounds to go with.